welcome to On Air. I'm Klara Syrewicz. Oil trade, sanction packages, tariffs, unless you work in the commodities sector. This may not sound very exciting. But if you think the subject is dull, sometimes it actually plays out like a soap opera with a dash of action thriller. Stick around, you'll see. During his meeting with Poland's president, Trump warned that if he was unhappy with Putin's decisions regarding the peace process, we would see things happen. What kind of things? Well, I'm not sitting inside Trump's mind, thankfully, but odds are those things involve economic pressure. And yes, probably oil. It's always oil. Unsurprisingly, since it covers up to 50% of Russia's budget and powers its economy, military and war industry. So how does Russia move it around? Most crude, over 80%, flows through pipelines, with a significant portion sent to domestic refineries. Seaborne exports, mainly to China and India, pass through Baltic, Black Sea and Pacific ports. Since the Black Sea mostly ships Kazakh crude, the Baltic and Pacific handle the bulk of exports. In that case, how do we stop the flow? Sabotage it, slow it down, block it? This is what we'll talk about today. You must have seen the kamikaze drone petrol crisis staged by Ukraine this summer when it hit oil refineries across Russia. Although Trump claimed Ukraine doesn't hold any cards, its weak hand hit Moscow's war machine harder than Trump's Alaska bromance. In 2025, 40% of Ukraine's long-range strikes targeted oil infrastructure, though the recent ones have been different. They disrupted at least 17% of Russia's refining capacity, causing fuel shortages, rationing, long queues at gas stations, and a 49% rise in gas prices. The Kremlin was forced to extend its gasoline export ban into September. Fewer rubles and fewer rockets. So why can't we see more of these hits? It's a tempting thought, but let's kill the fantasy. Sabotaging pipelines in the farthest corners of Russia where they are most abundant isn't feasible, plus they are easily repaired, as shown by the Druzhba incident. Ukraine may continue its campaign with those overdue long-range missiles, but any cinematic where eagles dare sabotage missions are unlikely. Time to explore the boring and safe options. Did someone say boring and safe? Ah yes, that must be the EU, with its sanctions and tariffs. Okay, but are Western sanctions on Russian oil really working? A key question considering how often they're dodged and endlessly revised. While some sanctions produced significant long-term effects, like the export ban on spare parts which jammed Russia's military maintenance, the same can't be said of oil sanctions. According to the Kyiv School of Economics, Russia's oil revenue losses dropped from $8.6 billion in early 2023 to just $1.9 billion by mid-2024.
The West has forgotten that Russia weathered the initial 2014 and 2015 sanctions in the wake of the invasion of Crimea very well.
From day one, Moscow organized ghost fleets, new buyers, hello India and China, and the whole arsenal of tricks to hide the oil's origin. Oil tankers from Russia often sail under flags of convenience from Liberia or the Marshall Islands, are owned by shell companies, carry fake papers, disable tracking and perform off-radar transshipments at sea. Once transferred, the oil's origin vanishes and it's resold above the price cap. Plus they're insured by phantom companies, so if there's a spill, good luck with any accountability. But sanctions also flop for other reasons. Unlike Washington, Brussels doesn't have a central body enforcing them. It's up to each member state, and some are more eager than others to look the other way for financial reasons. For instance, ship-to-ship transfers are rife off the Greek coast. Greece's government claims little can be done as they occur in international waters. But service providers use local ports to move equipment and personnel out to the tankers, while data shows Greece has issued dozens of permits to these companies. And yes, Greek shipping firms still play a big role in ferrying Russian oil. The EU even approved tanker sales to Russia after the war began. Yeah. Anyhow, for Europe, another elephant in the room has always been a fear of price spikes. Tightening sanctions poses an economic risk. According to the Center for the Study of Democracy, we in Europe pay far more for energy than the US or China. And we have no one to blame but ourselves. We built prosperity on fossil fuels from authoritarian volatile regimes and pinned our clean energy hopes on tech controlled by more authoritarian regimes. Energy was, and still is, our biggest strategic liability. However, claiming that stricter sanctions would raise oil prices hinges more on propaganda than truth. In January, the US sanctioned 183 Russian ships, its largest action yet, targeting Pacific ports. Global energy prices stayed stable. Meanwhile, Europe, despite high energy costs, has reduced its geopolitical risk by diversifying suppliers. So yes, it can handle tougher sanctions on Russian oil without falling apart. That is not the case for India. It is Russia's second largest oil buyer. Before the war, Russian crude made up less than 1% of its imports. Now it's about a third. A whole industry has flourished in the process. India buys it cheap, refines it, then sells it back to Europe. But now the EU plans to phase out all Russian oil and refined products by 2027. This will batter Indian profits. Then comes the second whammy, Trump's 50% tariff on Indian imports as punishment for its Russian oil ties. India, with a $46 billion trade surplus, will feel the impact. All this lands squarely on New Delhi, but not on Russia. And now the soap opera twists, where Trump tried to play, but got played. Since 2022, Russia has been sanctioned and shut out of Western energy investments. So here's what I presume Trump attempted to do. He invited Putin for peace talks and tried to show off his leverage with threats of secondary sanctions, with India as the test case. But while the red carpet meeting took place, his administration quietly explored energy deals with Russia. That was the carrot, and it looked like it had worked. That same day, Putin signed a decree reopening the door to foreign investors if they backed efforts to lift Western sanctions. ExxonMobil was among them, seeking to reclaim its €4 billion stake in the Sakhalin-1 oil and gas project, seized after the invasion. The problem, however, was that Trump had already shown he couldn't extend those threats after his initial trade standoff with Xi Jinping, which saw China ready to absorb 145% tariffs and enter a devastating trade war until the US backed down. And because of security arrangements, Trump was unlikely to impose tariffs on Turkey, the third biggest importer. So the bluff was called, and India leaned even harder into Moscow and Beijing's embrace. Meanwhile, following the Alaska talks, Putin launched a barrage of attacks on civilians in Ukraine and flew straight to Tianjin, where, snubbing Trump, he walked down the aisle hand in hand with his, whatever you want to call it, Modi, as their union was consecrated by the guy who basically owns both of them, Master Xi. Kim Jong-un, Iran's Masoud Pezeshkian, and Slovakia's Fico were the maids of honor. And now the ultimate scorn. Russia and China used the summit to announce several energy deals, including a new pipeline and a joint bank, which, according to the Institute for the Study of War, will facilitate sanctions evasion. Slap. Then the Jedi returned. Sort of. Although Trump said earlier he'd impose massive sanctions or massive tariffs or both if Russia didn't cooperate, he urged the European Union to do it first and apply 100% tariffs on China and India to pressure Putin. Bold move. Delegation. Anyway, according to the official report, he said,
"The obvious approach here is let's all put on dramatic tariffs and keep the tariffs on until the Chinese agree to stop buying the oil. There really aren't many other places that oil can go."
The administration confirmed he was prepared to mirror any tariffs imposed by the EU. So, instead of racing to sign trade deals with India to soften Trump's tariff pressure on Europe, it's now up to the ever-unified, totally not China-dependent, and, let's not sugarcoat it, aggressive European Union to take a leap of faith and hope the US keeps its word. Consider it done. But like it or not, we're touching upon a certain truth. As sanctions expert Maria Shagina says, Russia's economy can look superficially resilient, but it is creaking under Western pressure. It's the cumulative effect that might finally work. Ukraine's drone strikes, choking the shadow fleet, and economic pressure on third parties. Then there's another, less obvious aspect that matters. Putin knows that perceived weakness can be lethal in a system built on the premise of strength. It threatens both the stability and global standing of his regime. Those long lines at gas stations are more dangerous than we think. The Kremlin invests enormous efforts into manipulating domestic and Western opinions of Russia's capabilities. From Victory Day parades to red carpet treatment in the US and later the kindergarten hand-holding and fun talks of organ transplants. What are those kidnapped children for, right? It's all part of the image. Russia, the superpower. Putin, the respected world leader. The frantic PR blitz highlights what the Kremlin actually tries to conceal: its military, economic, and diplomatic fault lines. Ironically, it's Ukraine's David that made notable gains against a larger, wealthier Goliath, chief of which is Russia's inability to realize almost any of its stated military objectives 3 years into this war, despite nearly 1 million Russians killed or wounded. It's time to crank up the pressure and yank back the red carpet. Donald Trump, the image builder-in-chief, should know better. We're not done with fossil fuels yet. This week's report looks at another thorny subject for the European Union: its gas purchases. During the latest round of tariff negotiations with Trump, the EU agreed to buy a staggering amount of liquefied gas from the US, a deal that, realistically speaking, may simply be impossible to enact.
Europe's energy future is in flux.
And by the end of 2027, we will be completely free from Russian gas.
When Russian troops invaded Ukraine in 2022, Europe slashed pipeline gas imports from Moscow. LNG shipments surged, and the United States quickly became the EU's top supplier, now covering nearly half of demand.
We have also demonstrated our solidarity and support for Ukraine by swiftly imposing unprecedented sanctions. My third and final message is on our very strong transatlantic cooperation. The United States has been a reliable ally in supplying energy, particularly LNG, and in the global clean energy transition, supporting us in this crisis.
Under a new trade deal, Brussels has pledged to triple its energy purchases from the US to 250 billion euros a year by 2028.
So they're investing a large amount of money. You know what that amount of money is. It's very substantial.
But the pledge may be unrealistic. The EU spent only 65 billion euros on US energy in 2024, and gas demand is already falling as renewables expand.
And we saw the chaos and carnage of extreme weather from Slovenia to Bulgaria and right across our union. This is the reality of a boiling planet. The European Green Deal was born out of this necessity to protect our planet. But it was also designed as an opportunity to preserve our future prosperity.
Critics call the agreement a dangerous U-turn from Europe's Green Deal, and politics is further complicating the picture. France and Belgium, the EU's top buyers of Russian LNG, are hesitant to back a ban, citing legal risks. Hungary and Slovakia remain firmly opposed. Even US gas comes with risks, from Gulf Coast hurricanes to rising domestic demand. Prices could soar, making American LNG less attractive. For Brussels, the challenge is clear. Diversify supplies, stick to climate goals, and avoid trading one dependency for another.
Wouldn't it be great if we could just use photosynthesis to power our economies? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.